very good Monday morning. Welcome inside our studios here. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. Yes, from Charlotte, North Carolina, proudly bringing this program to you on this Monday morning. We cannot bring this show to you without our great partners, Century Insurance, our presenting sponsor. They are always right by you. And of course, 3 North Carolina-based companies that have been with us from the beginning. Peter Millar, Pinehurst, and Golf Pride. So proud to be aligned with them as we begin week 2 with you. I'm telling you, at the end of week 1, I'm like, are we done? Do we have to do that again? Here we are. We're looking forward to beginning week 2. We got a lot of great guests coming up. Brad Faxon is going to join me in just a couple of minutes. Brendan Porath of Friday Golf is going to join me as well. We begin, though, with what happened at the Sony Open. And what happened at the Sony Open amplifies why I'm such a huge fan of more opportunities, not less, when it comes to guys playing at the highest level on the PGA Tour. It was the first full field event on the PGA Tour. It was a wild ride, particularly coming home at Waialae Country Club. And as we take a look at the final leaderboard, they go to a playoff, and somebody who he's now won for the 5th time on the PGA Tour, Nick Taylor, he gets it done on the second playoff hole over Nicho Echeverria, who also is somebody who has proven to be very opportunistic. Nick wins it on that second playoff hole with the birdie. J.J. Spawn and Steven Yeager. It looked like it was de facto match play coming down the stretch. They were in the last group along with Eric Cole, who finished 2 shots out of that playoff. He finishes alone in 5th. Jackson Suber. Jackson finished 20th on the Korn Ferry Tour. That made his way, that gave him the entry onto the PGA Tour. Very good first start for him as a member of the PGA Tour. Adam Schenk, who I was very bullish on going into last year. He didn't have a very good season. Good week for him. He finishes in a tie for 6th, as does Patrick Fishburne at 13 under par. Keegan Bradly, the United States Ryder Cup captain. Keegan shot 64 on Saturday to get right into the thick of things. He never really fired on Sunday, but still a very good 2 weeks for him at the Century. And then at the Sony Open, he has a very good record there. And speaking of very good records, it was a logjam of the guys who finished in a tied for 10th. We're patronizing Brendan DeYoung, a member of the 5 Clubs family, by just showing Russell Henley. It was a gaggle of players who finished at 12 under par. That included Jesper Svensson, Nick Dunlap, Paul Peterson, Henley, Lee Hodges, Harry Hall, all those guys at 12 under par in a tie for 10th. But let's get back to the top of the leaderboard and the guy who won it. It's interesting about players who win on the PGA Tour, and specifically when it comes to someone like Nick Taylor. He's won now for the 5th time. Winning 5 times on the PGA Tour, there are a lot of guys who have really, really good careers who don't win 5 times. And the interesting thing about Nick is that if you go back to last year when he won the WM Phoenix Open, and he did it in dramatic fashion. He made a putt on the 18th hole to get into the playoff with Charlie Hoffman. He walked in a putt from about 10 feet, and then he gets into the playoff, and he makes another putt of about 10 to 12 feet to win the golf tournament. Nick Taylor, to me, is a guy who understands and knows that when I get into the blender, when it's late in a golf tournament, I can handle it. So if you look at his career, and Justin Ray had an amazing stat, and if you're not following Justin Ray, you should be, because Justin is somebody who is one of the most essential voices in golf. Nobody can mine more nuggets when it comes to what matters historically. Let me just give you the company that Nick Taylor is now in. He follows. These are the last 5 players to win playoff events in 3 consecutive seasons. Bubba Watson, 2010 to 2012. Ernie Els, 2002 to 2004. Phil Mickelson, 2000 to 2002. And Tiger, 1999 to 2001. Obviously, Woods, Els, and Mickelson are in the World Golf Hall of Fame. I absolutely believe that Bubba, with 12 wins and a couple Masters titles, is going to get into the World Golf Hall of Fame. Nick Taylor, I'm not suggesting is going to eventually be in the World Golf Hall of Fame. I've been lucky enough, and all of us here at Signature Sports Group have been very lucky over the last couple of years to be part of the Underrated Golf Tour, which is Steph Curry's junior golf tour. And one of the things that I tell these kids, for all the stats, for all the things that you think are important, and look, I'm not trying to diminish analytics. They're very valuable and they're very instructive, especially for young people. But the most important stat, the most refined stat, is the ability to win It doesn't happen that much. It's an elusive environment to be in. And if you manage to be composed in environments that are really unsettling, you're uncommon. Nick Taylor is an uncommon guy. And by virtue of him winning this event, he's in all the Signature Series events. He earmarks his way. He will go down Magnolia Lane. He's in the Masters. He's in the PGA Championship. And I'm not thinking that he wouldn't have figured out a way to get in it, but what a way to start your year. Winning again, winning for the 5th time, going now 3-0 in playoffs in your career, and now being exempt into all the biggest events on the PGA Tour. All right, we're just getting started here. Somebody who won 8 times on the PGA Tour and is one of the most cerebral voices in golf. He's a big part of the NBC on Golf Channel broadcast family. He is somebody who I've been lucky enough to spend time with, learning about his craft, his approach, and now he shares all those ideas on television. That is Brad Faxon. We take a break. We come back with him, his thoughts on what just transpired, but also kind of big picture stuff on this season ahead with him. Nice to have you with us on this Monday morning as we just get started with you. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, 6 minutes past the hour. We're back right after this. Welcome back in. It is 9 minutes past the hour. Good to have you with us on a Monday morning here on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. And we certainly are proud to present this segment. It is Golf Pride. You know, I switched to the reverse taper grip about a year and a half ago, and my friends laughed because I said I've never made more putts. I've never made more putts. Speaking of making putts, he made as many as anybody really over the last 30, 40, 50 years, maybe outside of Crenshaw. He joins me now, an 8-time winner on the PGA Tour, and a guy who's a big part of the NBC on Golf Channel family, coming to you from whether it's a combination workshop, garage, it's pretty stout. He's very proud of it. He is Brad Faxon. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Gary, great to be with you as always, and congrats on starting this new show. I'm excited to be with you.
Thank you. It's great to have you. Look, I could talk to you. I remember when we did a 5-part series at Old Sandwich some years ago, and we did 5 shows, and it was all short game. You know what? We could have done 5 more because of your depth of knowledge on so many things. So let me start with this. Look, this new year means a lot of new things, but this is a significant change to what we're going to see in terms of the workforce and where we're going. Do you think long-term, the reduction of 125 to 100, that in the long term, this is going to benefit the PGA Tour?
Gary, when I started the PGA Tour in 1983, I went through the qualifying school to make it for 84. There was a 125 system that Gary McCord had helped to start with Commissioner Dean Beeman, and that system has worked pretty well for a long time. There's been tweaks all over that length of time and duration now. And since Liv came around and kind of skewed the purse structure and skewed the value of a lot of the players, the PGA Tour is kind of trying to come up with some ways to get the better players to play together more often. We know there's the signature events. I'm not so sure that going from 125 to 100 is gonna make a big difference. We've already seen at the Sony Open last week that there was some delays in the first day and players didn't finish due to darkness. And we are always trying to get the most players on the golf course to give players the most chances to play. But yesterday, Gary, I played golf at MacArthur, which I know you know, one of the finest clubs in the world.
Yep.
And a lot of the people after the round, and I was with a host of some great people yesterday, were saying they love the story of a qualifier or somebody from back in the pack that can make a run. And we saw, that great examples of that last year when Eric Cole played well here at the Cognizant Classic. I don't know if this theory is going to prove out to be much different. It's just going to be harder for guys to retain their privileges.
No, I think your point about, I've always believed, you love all sports, that the door needs to be left ajar. That underdogs don't drive sports, but there's a thread, there's a texture to that story that always needs to be told, and I hope it continues to be. On another note related to this is the creation of this signature series. Look, you saw it. You saw the value when Norman played in events, 80s into the 90s. Jack, even, he built his schedule around majors, so it wasn't like he was playing 30 events. Tiger, same thing. with the Signature Series, there really is kind of like a tier system. Do you think players, sponsors, television, in the long run, this system will be good?
Tour has always had tiered system. There's always been invitational events. Arnold's tournament, Jack's tournament, the Colonial was one of those. The Harbor Town was one of those. But this is more of a tier. This is a steeper tier than they've ever had before. And I'm going to name drop a little bit. But my day at MacArthur, I was with the president of the club, Peter Lund, who used to, I think you might know Peter, was the president of CBS Sports, and President Obama was there with a host of big name people, and one of them, Jay Clayton, who used to run the Securities Exchange Commission. He said, look, and he's close to the policy board players and a lot of the players on the tour. And he said, look, we need to get these players back together. And I mean these players, meaning the live players. We need Bryson, we need Brooks, we need Cam Smith. We need all these guys to come back and get together. And he's pretty confident that President Trump is going to be a big factor in moving things quicker. I know there's issues with the Department of Justice, but that's what's missing right now. And I think that's the apathy with the viewers is, where is everybody? We need these players to play together. We need to not have to worry about what tour they're on.
I'm not surprised that you were in the deep end of the pool yesterday, which is great. That's why I appreciate so much about your pursuit of not only seeing the best things in the world, but the fellowship that comes with it. Speaking of which, look, you spent a lot of time with Rory, and some of it, most of it, I know is constructive. There is a purpose in terms of preparation, but he has evolved in terms of his view of seeing the best places, spending time with people that matter to him, enriching his life in the game of golf. Can doing those things make him a better player?
Without a doubt. Rory's 35 years old now. It's a prime time for a golfer in their age. In 2024, he won 4 times, finished second 4 times, 2 heartbreaking second place finishes, obviously at Pinehurst at the U.S. Open to DeChambeau. Rory played a lot last year, 27 events. I think he knows to be at his peak, he needs to come down on that total a little bit. He's actually over in Dubai this week to play in the DP World Tour event, where he's won now 6 titles over there. And all players that have had some adversity on the golf course have bounced back from that. And Rory's, he's a very resilient player. I think these, the battles from last year are going to help him going forward. He's the best voice in golf, as you know, Gary. When you talk to Rory, he always tells you something. I think he's motivated. He made some, some incredible swing changes at the end of last year with Michael Bannon, the only coach he's ever had. And I'm bullish on Rory. When you're talking about players that could have breakout years, I think this is going to be a sensational year for McIlroy.
Tiger had such a curious mind, but he wasn't necessarily forthcoming, Brad. Rory has a curious mind, and he is forthcoming. Is there any time when he steps into the big top and the media centers, when he shares thought and he shows introspection, that you go, gosh, I love it, but I wish you wouldn't do that? Do you ever find yourself reflexively saying, please don't share so much?
No, I don't know. I like that when players share that. And, he got criticized last year at Pinehurst when DeChambeau made that up and down, incredible up and down on the 72nd hole to win, and Rory didn't stick around. I wouldn't have stuck around for that. That was gut-wrenching for him to have to endure that towards the end of the round. But when he does walk into a press conference, he's so versed and so schooled in so many topics. It's not just what he's doing in golf. I mean, you think about Rory turned pro at 17 years old, never finished high school. And he can sit with heads of state, which he has, with some of the top businessmen in the country and talk about a balance sheet or, anything to do with economics. I just think he's a special person, and we're lucky to have him. He's been inside the top 5 in the world for almost 10 years now. Not many people can say that.
No, they can't. Give me, as you get ready to embark on another season being on the air and calling golf, somebody who you think is poised to make what you would describe as a significant jump. Is there somebody who comes to mind immediately?
Well, you kind of prepped me with this question, so I was thinking about this because I don't know if a guy that's number 6 in the world can have a breakout year, but Ludwig Oberg looks to me like a guy that doesn't stress his body when he makes a swing. People stop players stop behind him when he's on the range because his swing is absolute. I don't know if there's such thing as a perfect golf swing, but something that you love to watch him hit. He won last at the end of the year at the RSM, finished second at the Masters last year, Ryder Cupper. I believe he's going to have an incredible year and maybe more of a dark horse player. I'm a big fan of Denny McCarthy. Denny's a smaller guy, been one of the best putters, so maybe I'm biased towards that over the last 5-6 years. He works with an instructor down here at Pine Tree named Brian Cregan, and they've really helped Denny to get stronger, hit the ball a little bit farther, and he knows that. And it's just a fine line between winning and finishing second. I think Denny McCarthy's going to be a good player, and this year might be a special year for him.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned Denny McCarthy. Look, you were very reliant on the closer you got to the hole, you had an exponential advantage, and data wasn't a driving force back then over your competition. I think guys who are more strategic, point to point, rely on being great the closer they get to the hole, are discriminated against to a degree on the PGA Tour. Do you think that there is still space for guys, and even Steven Jaeger has made a huge leap in terms of ball speed, swing speed, and he can count on it under pressure. He did it in Houston last year. He did it, certainly yesterday. He didn't drive it great yesterday, but you understand my point. Is there still enough space for that player?
Well, absolutely. And you look at the number one player in the world, Scotty Scheffler, with his team, what they've done. Phil Kenyon, maybe one of the best putting coaches of all time. They went and looked at Scheffler's stats, found some room in the shorter putting numbers, using all the data to say, hey, look, let's see if we can improve a tenth of a stroke around, and think about that, a half shot a tournament, what that could mean over the course of a season. And we saw them come up with a new idea for this new saw grip that he used, and he did very nicely at the Hero. I know he's hurt now with the injury during Christmas time, but that's how players can use stats to their benefit. But it's also it's like I said, a very fine line between the art and the science of putting in the game of golf.
All right, let me get you out of here with 5 to go. 5 quick questions. Some guys are very efficient at this. Guys like Van Pelt and Nance last week, not. You know how they are. They're just gas bags like I am. They just want to talk.
I'm not good at this, Gary.
You will be, because I made this much more centric, because nobody can nerd out on golf better than you can in all areas. If you could restore any place in the world to whatever its original intent or aesthetic was, where would it be?
Well, I'd start right at the top with Augusta National. I know that's sacrilegious to say that, but when I look at these old courses that I love and what I've seen, and the evolution of Augusta National with the most pristine, and it was my favorite tournament to play, and I was lucky enough to play in 11 Masters, but I thought the old, not as kept look of the bunkering, the rough was added, the trees have been added. It's very different. It's become a premium on every part of your game, where maybe driving you could get away with hitting it all over the place like I used to do that. But I don't know. I think you look at some of these old courses, and I would love to see Augusta National like it was originally designed. All due respect to Fred Ridley and all the members there.
No, listen, I'm with you. That would be so disorienting to see. Like the images of like 12 and 13 and how unkept the tributary to Rays Creek was. It was so scraggly, and there was there was like natural erosion. I'm with you. It looked amazing. All right, give me the turn window food item or grill room menu item in golf that you think is the absolute best.
So you ever go to Olympic Club and they have a hamburger in the shape of a hot dog? I mean, I don't know if anybody can pull it off like they can. I was there one time, and the mayor of San Francisco came there just to have that that food item. That was one of the best things I've ever had. I know there's a name for it that I'm forgetting.
Burger dog.
Burger dogs. There we go. Why isn't that on every menu at every club in the country?
Brad, the Olympic Club gave me the device that you take the ground beef. And I've got a burger dog device that I can make them. I haven't made one in a while. If you ever come up to Charlotte, you'll be here for the PGA, hopefully. Swing on by. I'm close to quail. I'll make you a burger dog. All right. I thought you were going to say the snapper soup at PV. I'll tell you another one. How about the peanut butter and bacon sandwich at Mountain Lake?
Yeah. The variations of all those peanut butter sandwiches are pretty darn good, aren't they? Every club tries to do something that they have for their signature, but they're all looking forward to how to pass Olympic clubs.
No question. All right, the best dressed player in the 90s, which was the bulk of your wins were in the 90s. You won 5 times, I believe, in the 90s, 3 in the 2000s. But who was the most Natalie-clad player in the 90s?
It's a funny question. I was lucky enough with Billy Andre to get to know Glenn Fry, the Eagles, lead singer with Don Henley, and he said he waited to get through the 80s and 90s in order to play golf, so the clothes would get better. I don't know. You could say there were so many players. Steve Elkington used to get voted the best dressed player. I just think he had the right body for clothes. They fit so well on him. But I love the guys that took chances. I mean, and Johnny Miller was obviously 70s and 80s. He snuck into the 90s a little bit. I kind of like that big, thick white belt, the plaid pants and stuff like that. And I'm a big visor guy too.
Yeah, I think he accentuated his look because he always wore great shoes. He'd wear the lizard skin, he'd wear the alligator. It was always head to toe. It was great. All right, your favorite hole in your home state. One hole in the state of Rhode Island. What is it?
Well, I'm going to be partial to where I grew up. I grew up in a town of Barrington, Rhode Island Country Club.
Yep.
We used to hold the CVS Charity Classic there. Donald Ross course, the last 4 holes were right on Narragansett Bay, and the 17th hole was kind of that typical Donald Ross perched up par 3. It was only 140 yards, but I'd hit everything from 4-iron to pitching wedge there, depending on the weather. And when I think of Rhode Island golf, that was kind of, I hate to use the term signature hole, but the lighthouse in the background, I don't know, there's not much that makes me smile more than that.
Now, I was lucky enough to spend a summer at the Musquamacut Club, the 4th hole in Musquamacut, that little short uphill par 4. Like 3 is almost the same length going downhill slightly, which is a 3, and then 4 back in the other. So much quirk. There's so many great things in the state of Rhode Island. You know it as well as anybody. All right, last thing. Your bucket list is short because you satisfy your itch all the time, places you haven't seen. Is there a place right now on your mind that you have not been to that you want to get to?
There is, and I went through, all the different rankings that come out, whether it's Golf Week, Golf Digest, Golf Magazine, the different golf courses. I've played about 80 of the top 100, which I think is probably more than most of the PGA Tour players. I haven't been to Bandon Dunes, so I could knock four courses off on that trip. I know you're looking at that, and I've never been to Wade Hampton to play Tom Fazio's probably highest ranked course. So those are a couple I'd like to get on the list. I think that question. I was lucky enough to go down to New Zealand about 3-4 weeks ago with Rory to play at Tara Edie and the other 2 courses at Tiare Links. And if you haven't made that trip, that's worth it.
Listen, it's always great to chat with you. It's good to see you. Thank you for doing this. I look forward to doing this, hopefully throughout the year. Thanks so much.
Gary, you're the best. Thank you.
There is Brad Faxon, 8-time winner on the PGA Tour and a big-time member of the NBC Golf Channel broadcast family. His season will start in a couple of weeks. All right, we take a break here. We continue. There was an event over the weekend that was Ryder Cup related, and it probably was overlooked by a lot of people. We get to that and a whole lot more on a Monday morning edition at 27 minutes past the hour. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. We're back right after this. We are back in. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, 31 minutes past the hour on a Monday morning. It's great to have you with us. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar, where performance meets luxury. Since 2011, it's all I wear, whether it's on the golf course, at the stadium, in a boardroom, a night on the town. From head to toe, it's Peter Millar for me, and it should be for you. You know, this past week saw some Ryder Cup news, and I know a lot of people might have centered it around the news that Kevin Kisner is going to be a part of the United States kind of brain trust as a vice captain. I texted Kevin and I said, you in New York City is like peanut butter and jelly, a guy from Aiken, South Carolina. He actually played very, very well at the President's Cup at Liberty National. And I think it's great to see that the United States is making a change and a pivot to kind of the next generation of voices that are going to be a part of this. Kevin has got the kind of traction with the younger generation. I know he spends a lot of time with the likes of Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, and I think it's certainly reasonable to think that Justin's going to be a part of the team. I think it's going to be a bigger chore for Jordan Spieth. We'll talk about Jordan as he gets ready to begin his season officially in a couple of weeks. So that was news. And I think Webb Simpson's actually going to be sitting right there on Wednesday. Webb played well at the Sony. He lives here in Charlotte. He's going to be joining me in studio. And Webb has been around the system not only as a player, but now transitioning to kind of a vice captaincy role, whether it be President's Cup or Ryder Cup. And Keegan Bradly is a contemporary, a lot of players who are going to be on this team. So it's not like he is removed from the system and has to make time to be around them. So I think that is advantageous for the United States team. But the Team Cup, which was an event that is played around the DP World Tour, it's a DP World Tour event, and obviously it's a team competition between Continental Europe that was captained by Francesco Molinari and Justin Rose, who represented Great Britain and Ireland, which made me think of the way it used to be before they added Continental Europe in 1979 when they played the Ryder Cup at the Greenbrier. And Great Britain and Ireland won it. And that to me is not as important as this representing what Europe represents. We're going to have a lot of discussion throughout 2025 on this program and on this network and in the industry of golf about the Ryder Cup, where it is, the pressure on the United States to win, because winning this event on the road, it's so weird that a sport that has never had any association with a home field or home court advantage now possesses the greatest home court or home field advantage, I believe, in all of sports. The road team doesn't win. The United States has not won on the road since 1993. And it took a miracle for Europe to win. They've won it twice in this century. They did it in 2004 at Oakland Hills, and they obviously did it again miraculously at Medina in 2012. Here's the thing about Europe, and this is also something that I look forward to exploring with past captains of the European team and people who cover not only golf but all sports. I think that the European Ryder Cup team is one of the great teams in the history of sports. Again, there's irony to that because it's a sport not associated so much with the team concept. The United States has an enormous amount of pressure, and the Team Cup that was just conducted is reflective of what they do. They have a system that includes everybody who has been part of it, that they then don't spit out on the other end. And I'm talking about guys like Sam Torrance and Paul McGinley and Jose Maria Olazabal and Thomas Bjorn. There is a kinship and a fabric to what they do that seems almost impenetrable. The United States has got one hell of a tall order, even though it's at home, because they got immense pressure on their hands. It's going to be a hell of a year to see as we build toward Bethpage, which the venue alone is going to be fascinating. We take a break here. When we come back, Brendan Porath, who is part of a group that I think produces as much quality content as anybody in this advent of the digital age, that is Fried Egg Golf. He is the head of content for Fried Egg. He will join me when we continue to get his thoughts on things related to the PGA Tour and beyond. Nice to have you with us. It's a Monday morning. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, 35 past the hour. We're back right after this. It is 39 minutes past the hour on a Monday morning. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. It is week 2 for us. If you're going, who are you and what are you doing here? Originating from Charlotte, North Carolina, it's nice to have you with us. By the way, additional new programming coming to Golf Channel, and I will talk about that at the end of the program that will follow me on Mondays. And this segment is being brought to you by Pinehurst Resort. So proud to have them aligned with us. I have so many lifetime memories, starting with golf camp as a teenager there. And they are the cradle of American golf and certainly an anchor site for the United States Golf Association. And now they are offering up, starting in May, their first on-course housing, because they're going to have cottages at Pinehurst number 8. It is always a good day to be at Pinehurst. You know, I did this last week. We're going to do this every Monday. And it may not just be things that I saw on television as it relates to the professional game. But what I saw over the weekend, I mentioned this last week just because it was so spectacular. And it's not just him, because I saw more of it. So what I saw this weekend was, I saw Keegan Bradly's mustache, and I really took a good look at it. And I said last week, he looked like a middle reliever for the Milwaukee Brewers in the 80s. And I know he's a Red Sox fan, but I just always associate a guy with a cheesy mustache. And I don't mean cheesy like bad. I mean like cheesy, like thick and hearty. He needs a deal with New Era. You know, like the 5950 that is the standard issue cap for Major League Baseball players. Now, the hat that he wears is very similar to that. It is so perfect. The other thing is, he kind of looks a little bit like the character in Something About Mary, Pat Healy, played by Matt Dillon. It's so spectacular, but he's not the only one. I mean, did you look at some of these other dudes who are rocking right now? Look, Johnson Wagner, who's going to be in here in a couple of weeks, who you saw on Golf Central, who's not only a big part of Golf Channel, but also a huge part of the Five Clubs family. He's got, it's funny, I was with my mom over the weekend, and she said to me, does Johnson color his mustache? And I said, Mom, I got to be honest, I've never probed him about that. I don't think he's doing any coloration. He's a guy in his early 40s. I don't think he needs to. But Paul Peterson, did anybody get a load of his mustache? Spectacular. Nick Taylor's got a little too much other facial hair, so I need him to clean up the rest of his face. But he's got it going on. And I'm thinking of Sam Ryder, Eric Von Rooyen. Eric Von Rooyen is willing to even go the smiley whiplash at the end. 2025 might be the year of the stash in golf. And if Keegan Bradly, as the captain of the Ryder Cup team, has a mustache, I think the whole team should have him. Now, I know that would be a little gimmicky, but I think about the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s. Whenever they would get into the playoffs, they would wear black shoes. They didn't wear black during the year. I think the United States Ryder Cup team, all of them, like I'm thinking about some of these guys. Like, first of all, Scotty Scheffler could grow facial hair between holes. He's one of those guys, like John Rahm's another guy. Like, you can see him on a Tuesday at a presser, and on Wednesday he's got a full beard. Like, Scheffler could grow a mustache in a rain delay. I am fascinated by what's going on. The last thing I'll say as we go to break here, Stephen Yeager. Stephen Yeager, who I'm a huge fan of what he's done in terms of elevating himself, in terms of what is required, growing speed. He's got an apparel deal with Cricket, who's, I think, has got great style. And he's not quite Keith Mitchell, who was his high school teammate, but he's got a 4-button placket. And yesterday, he had the shirt that had the breast pocket with the button, which is very old school. The only thing he was missing was a pack of Salem cigarettes. He only had one button buttoned. When you're going 3 wide open with your lapel and your collar going like that, you are all man to do that. I don't have that game. Very proud of Stephen Yeager for rocking that look as he starts 2025. All right, we take a break here. We come back. Brendan Porath is going to join us of Friday Golf. We look big picture in 2025 with him. It's 43 minutes past the hour. It's 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. We're back right after this. It is 47 minutes past the hour here, 5 Clubs on Golf Channel on a Monday morning. Nice to have you with us. Our presenting sponsor, Century Insurance, right by you. You know, when we embarked on building this thing, and I don't know that we were building it properly. We were just trying to learn. We took leads from certain outfits that know what they're doing in the digital space, and there is nobody who I think has done it better than the team at Friday Golf. And joining us now is the head of content for Friday Golf, and that is Brendan Porath. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, Gary. Thanks so much for having me on. Congrats on the launch here on Golf Channel. I've been a big admirer of your work for a long time.
Brendan, thank you so much. There are a lot of things you and Andy and everybody else at your team, you guys dive into. You put the carcass on the table, you pull the meat off the bone, and we'll try to do that in a condensed version over the next 10 to 12 minutes. Let me ask you about ratings, the tour, why people are fatigued. Why do you think they are? Do you think it is just this insistence on the conversation being driven by money and the fracturing of the tour with LIV? Is that the root of all of this?
I think that's a piece of it, but we're seeing this sort of across the board, right? Golf has sort of always had a problem with, or an issue, I guess, admiring its problems, at least as long as I've been involved in the game and involved in media covering the game. There was that anxiety in the prior decades of how do we get younger audiences? How do we grow the game? The game is dying, golf recreationally, professionally. The game is dying. That was the narrative. I think there's some insecurity, and I'm a part of it. I can be cynical at times. There is some insecurity about golf that seems more pervasive, but there's a ratings issue really across the board in a lot of professional sports right now. Look, we're in a data-driven society right now. Everything, a player, it used to be just wins and losses, but now a player has a much more accurate representation on whether he's playing well or not based on strokes gained, this or that. And ratings seem to be the primary marker of whether the tour is hot, the tour is successful, the tour is running well, or it's tanking. And I'm not sure that's reflective necessarily. And I think some of the conclusions we draw are probably too broad and too definitive based on a television number. And we see it going on with the NBA, right? The NBA ratings are down, and it creates this sort of negative feedback loop, right? And there just might not be that much demand, right? Or as much demand as a prior era, right? And for a January game between the Kings and Pelicans, that's not going to do well. And golf now has splintered in the last 3 or 4 years. And I don't know if we asked ourselves if there was a demand for all this golf, right? And certainly golf in disparate places without the best players in the same place. And so I think there's a couple things here. Golf is, I wouldn't say self-sabotaged itself, but a professional golf, I should be clear, sabotaged itself, but it hasn't done itself any favors. And there's just sort of a natural trend of maybe NBA going down. F1 had that boom based off a Netflix show, and that sort of leveled off. So I think we need to go easy on ourselves sometimes, but it's certainly a cause for concern. And we haven't asked ourselves, is there this much demand? And, I go back a lot to Seth Waugh had a quote, I think at last year's PGA Valhalla. And it feels like a trend has flipped where people used to watch the professional game and then go play based on being inspired or whatever it may be, engaged by that product. And we've seen it flip here certainly since the pandemic. Fewer people are watching, more people are playing. And how do we capture that? How do you make this something that's engaging for the person who's already kind of in the boat and playing golf?
Do you think that there is somebody who is definitively the most indispensable asset for the PGA Tour right now?
Is it the M&A attorney who's trying to figure out, this deal with the Saudi PIF? I don't know. The PGA Tour has changed so much in the last 3 or 4 years. We were told that it was this cruise ship that can't be steered quickly, that they've made some dramatic overhauls and it's constantly moving. I think it's probably Tiger Woods. Can I say that? The guy who plays maybe, 1 to 2 PGA Tour events 4 or 5 times a year. That's the guy they brought out to introduce the new PGA Tour studios. Yep. It's the guy they kind of keep putting front and center. It's the guy who won the PIP, the last iteration of the PIP. I think it's probably Tiger. He's can be used sort of as this ultimate ace in the hole, this shield for when times are tough. And he's obviously committed to the tour, its model, its sense of history and legacy. He feels like that. And then I think after that, it's probably Scotty. If you're gonna hold yourself out as the best player for the best players, he's indisputably the best golfer in the world. And if you're going to be a competitive product, he has to be involved.
Yeah, and I think the Tiger thing, look, relying on one person for forever is a very tenuous thing to do. But this sag, I think, also coincides with the reality that you can't rely on him anymore to be out there 10, 12, 15 times a year. And I think that that's an element to it as well. Last thing for now, I wish we had more time. Keegan Bradly has played well for 2 weeks. This is not about wanting one side to be successful and the other to not be successful. What is your feeling about what is not going to go away and the idea of him being a playing captain? Is this unreasonable, or do you think that it's not unreasonable?
It's insane, Gary. It's insane.
Thank you.
I think, Luke Donald, Dodo Molinari, they would be doing backflips.
Correct.
If this persists and it even comes to fruition, even, is discussed in the final moments before the picks are due. It's a preposterous notion. It feels sort of media driven. Now, Keegan's playing well. It's not to say he's undeserving, but it's impractical for him to be the captain and a player. He's playing well. It's an insane notion. And I think it feels like it's filling up the page and the airwaves to talk about it, but it's not a practical solution. And if they did it, it would be an own goal. And the European team would be ecstatic if it happened.
Let me ask you to answer this in 30 seconds. TGL, you guys have done a lot. You did a full recap last week. Tiger's going to play tomorrow. How does this augment the offering that is the PGA Tour?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it does necessarily. I think obviously you're putting your biggest stars in a new platform and a new audience, new bloodstream, whether it's ESPN and a new game. But I'm still trying to figure out how it augments the PGA Tour. If I thought that was a more interesting and engaged product last week compared to the Sony Open. But I think it can push your stars into new bloodstreams, and maybe that's how it does it.
Listen, I look forward to talking to you about what Fried Egg is going to be doing in 25. I'm so interested to see you, Andy, and the rest of the team, the vision for giving people all these things they want in golf way beyond the pro game. Thank you. This will be the first of many conversations I hope we have this year. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
There is Brendan Porath, the head of content for Friday Golf. We come back, some final thoughts, get you set for a new show that follows us on a Monday as well. Back right after this. As we get ready to say goodbye on this Monday morning, I know everybody around the country and really around the world are looking at the scenes from Southern California, and they're saying this is unimaginable. This can't be reality, and it is. And then when we started this program last week on Monday, I talked about the fact that we want this to be personal. We want you to feel like this is a place for you to come and watch, and the people you're going to see, and the art behind me, and the photographs. The music on this program is my first cousin, Jim Dooley. He lost his home last week in Southern California, and I'm thinking about him and his wife and his family and all the people out there that are going through something that is so unexplainable. And so for all of us here at Five Clubs and to everybody out there in Southern California, and the truth is that the PGA Tour is coming stateside. It's coming to the mainland. It's coming to the Palm Desert to start. And we know that there is an event right there in Pacific Palisades that is scheduled. We'll talk about that. That's not for today or right now, but our hearts and our minds are certainly with everybody out there. We were certainly proud last Monday to begin this program, and I know that the guys who are getting ready to follow me are equally as proud. Their podcasts, Rex Hoggard and Ryan Lavner, two guys who I have great admiration and respect for, used to work with them on an everyday basis. Their program is coming up next right here on a Monday morning. Tomorrow, Andy Roddick, the last man to win a Grand Slam tennis title. He loves golf. He joins me in studio. We hope all of you out there have a great Monday. Rex, Ryan, have a great show. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.